Ruben, a doctor asked, he said, I have read the Old Testament from cover to cover, and I noticed that the Messiah was promised to the Jews and not to this world. What was your take on that?
Okay. You're half right, because yes, he was promised to the Jews, but you've got to follow the argument through and find out what the role of the Jews are in God's plans. If the role of the Jews is just to be a special people who are blessed by God and can keep to themselves, then I understand your argument. But actually, what we find in the scriptures is that the intent of the Jews is that they were to be a special people who were to show the world what it's like to worship the one God, not the many gods. That's the situation that the world is in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. I mean, paganism was a mishmash of many different gods throughout the Roman Empire and beyond. And the Jews and the Christians stood out like a sore thumb amongst them. And I don't know if you know, but the Christians were called atheists by the Romans because they only believed in one God. That's a good one, isn't it?
Yeah.
But let's have a look at some of the things that God says about the Jews. This is the end of Isaiah. I seem to be doing Isaiah a lot today, but I love the book of Isaiah. So this is verse 18. And I, because of their actions and their imaginations, am about to come and gather all nations and tongues, and they will come and see my glory. I will set a sign among them. I will send some of those who survive to the nations. And then there's a description of all the nations spread out throughout all of the African and Mediterranean world. And even to the distant islands, and that's probably us here in England, because the Phoenicians were trading with us all the way during this time. They will proclaim my glory, how? Among the nations. So there you have, in the Old Testament, God's plan for the Jews, that the Jews will be the source of his glory being revealed, and that glory will then go out and gather the nations. Okay, let's flip back quickly to Isaiah 9, one of those wonderful passages that we read at Christmas time and then ignore, but we shouldn't. It says here right at the beginning, but in the future he will honour Galilee of the Gentiles. Gentiles are people who are not Jews. So God is going to honour Galilee of the Gentiles. Why? Because that's where Jesus lives and where Jesus ministers. And then we go on. How do I know that? Because to the people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, and of the increase of his government there will be no end. There you go, there's your Messiah, but he's not a Messiah just for the Jews. The Jews are the stepping point. If you go to the New Testament, you've got Jesus ministering to the woman at Samaria and explaining how the Messiah is for more than the Jews. And then you've got the woman from Phoenicia, the Tyros Syrian woman, who comes to Jesus, and she's a pure Gentile. And Jesus says, but why should I bless you? Because you're not a Jew. And she says, even the dogs can gather the crumbs under the table. And he says, I can't argue. And he blesses her. And it's quite some blessing. It's a miraculous blessing of healing. Yeah. So this is Jesus showing in his ministry that his ministry is supposed to impact well beyond the people of the Jews. That's God's plan and intent. I've stuck to Isaiah. There are many other places I could take you to in the Old Testament which have the same pointers.